What's going on, Packers fans? Happy Tuesday. Welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack-A-Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can find the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. What else you should be following every single day is Acme Packing Company, acmepackingcompany.com, in fact. And that, of course, is the one and only Justis Mosqueda. You can find him over there on Acme Packing Company. Of course, right here on the Pack-A-Day Podcast on Tuesdays as well. You can find him on social media at JUMOSQ. Justis, great to be back chatting with you. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. First sunny weekend since probably October, so I took advantage of that.
Love
Had
that.
a lot of fun.
It does not feel real to me yet that there is going to be an NFL draft in Green Bay, Wisconsin in 2.5 weeks. I know it's happening. I have seen the stuff going on right next to Lambeau Field, but it still feels so crazy to me that this event that I grew up watching, obviously Radio City, and that's obviously exploded into what it is today, is going to be happening in this small middle of nowhere town in Green. It's still surreal.
Yeah, we'll see who actually ends up going, right? Because Shedeur and Travis said that they aren't going. I think Will Campbell got an offer. It hasn't been reported yet whether he's going to go or not. Michael Williams, the DN from Georgia, is going, and so is Jalen Milroe, big surprise quarterback out of Alabama. He's being projected, I think, at highest second round for most people. So I don't know. Apparently, they're only going to invite 8 to 10 guys this year, and one of them is apparently Milroe. That seems like an odd decision to me. But
unless people are just not willing to go to Green Bay for the draft, I don't know if it's just again, the airport situation is unique. Trying to get direct flights from wherever these guys may be to Green Bay is not the easiest thing in the world. So yeah, I don't know if it's just that is an issue. I'm not sure, but I don't think that really changes the calculus of anything too much. I don't know that I don't know. If you're, going to be there standing in the crowd, you'd like to see those guys be there, but I don't know. It is what it is.
Yeah, I think you're there for the party. So
very much so.
I don't think it's the 5 seconds that guys walk out. I mean, I'm sure, home crowd, you'd like to have your guy so you can get that pop, right? I know the Eagles did when they hosted the draft a couple years ago, and it was just fly Eagles fly every single time, and guys were coming out and the pop was crazy. That'd be great, but certainly can't ensure that Packers targets are gonna be there.
Have you been to a draft at all?
Buddy, I went to the 2020 or the 2012 NFL draft in Radio City. That would have been the draft that Brian Anger went a pick. That's a punter, by the way, before Russell Wilson. I missed that period is when everyone asked each other to prom and stuff.
Sure.
So I was out of town for that. I came back, draft board completely decimated. So yeah, I did that my senior year. My uncle lives in New York, hung out with him for a week, did a couple of New York things, but mostly did Radio City type of stuff.
How was your experience?
It was fun. I think it's really different than, what they have now, where, the rotating cast and stuff. I mean, I don't know if people know where Radio City, I mean, it's basically right next to Rockefeller Plaza and all that stuff. So it's I'm there waiting in line and I see Questlove coming out of a limo to go film with Fallon or whoever the heck it was. So I think it's definitely a different environment. Some ladies walked past us and they were asking, "What are you guys in line for?" And we said the draft. She said, "You guys are all going to war?" Mind you, this is everyone is wearing jerseys. So that was kind of the vibe.
Did you say yes, I hope?
No, I don't even know if we responded. I mean, I was 18 at the time, so.
Right. I was at the one in Vegas. I don't know if I told you this story, but I was all excited, first NFL draft. And this was obviously just 4 years ago or right around there. And we get to the big staging area or whatever. And it's just obviously, as you would expect, thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And Justis, I got to tell you, as you're getting alerts on your phone of the Houston Texans select Derek Stingley Jr., and then a guy walks up in the stage and says, 5 minutes later, the Houston Texans have selected Derek Stingley Jr. And then that's it. And that I knew it on, you knew it on your phone 5 minutes before it happened. We probably stayed for about 5 picks, and then we're going to the casino. And that was pretty much the gist of it. And I just basically kept track of the picks for the remainder of the time at the blackjack table, which if I remember correctly, did not do very well at. But I digress. That was my Vegas draft experience, and it just put me very far behind on like who the Packers selected and starting to study all those things because I was in Vegas and not in my office. So yeah, I'm going to be spending a lot of time in my office this weekend, I think, is what the moral of the story is.
Yeah, I think Radio City was kind of better for that because at least as a fan, because you're seated in a certain spot and they do certain things, right? Like they used to, Packers pick is coming up and they're, looking around and they're like, you come with me to like this like rotating empty spot. And they're like, we just want to see you guys' reactions and things like that. But when you're there normally, I mean, there's a lot of downtime in between the picks. So you're just like riffing with other fans in seats, which is, hey, I like sitting more than standing. I don't know how I think it's mostly standing room for stuff now. But you get a riff on each other and then, their pick comes up and you've been talking with this guy for, I don't know, an hour and a half and you know exactly what he wants and it goes a different direction. And buddy, I am laying it on you at that point. So
amazing.
Yeah, fun experience. Definitely seems like it's different. I mean, this seems more like a party, right? It's more like
very much so.
Tailgate.
It's gonna be fun,
like all that stuff. So
did you see the I think it was former PFF Steve, the artist formerly known as did you see him posting the old drafts of like Donovan McNabb getting selected second overall and the crowd just going absolutely bananas, just booing the whole, like I remember it, but like, man, seeing it again, it was like, holy crap. Here's this guy is at Radio City getting selected, like the dream moment. And the whole room is just going off in disgust of how much they hate this pick.
The big thing in 2012 was everyone hated Goodell. Right at that point, that was probably Goodell's like most hated point. There was a guy up front who was dressed up in full-blown Stone Cold Steve Austin garb. So anytime, because they have that like pause when they say it, right? It's like with the first selection of the 2012 draft, and then there's that pause every single time, and he gets the whole rest of his like his little section too. It's just what? So if you go back and listen to the 2012 draft, you can hear that a little bit. That was a good bit. People playing like beer pong in the line, all that stuff. That was fun.
Amazing. Yeah. Times are good. I'm so excited for this. It's going to be epic. All right. A variety of topics I want to get to. Our main topic today is going to be going through some of these pass rushers, especially at defensive end, and reviewing which ones might be a fit for Green Bay. Excited to talk to you about that. I think your mind for defensive ends is as good as anyone's, and just kind of getting your breakdown on some of these guys is really exciting for me just personally, but I'm excited to go through some of these. Before we get there, just a couple quick topics. Number one, we saw a corner get released today. That was Jack Jones of the Raiders. Interesting for a couple different reasons. One, Green Bay can never get enough former Raiders corners. So I don't think they're going to be in the Jack Jones market, but you never quite know. Number two is that there was no interest in him whatsoever. Now, Jair Alexander, Jack Jones, not exactly on the same caliber of player. However, they're not on the same caliber of contract either. Jack Jones was $3 million non-guaranteed. Jair is $17 million non-guaranteed. There was no interest in Jack Jones whatsoever, even at that low cost. That could lead you to believe that there's just really not a trade market for corners.
Yeah, I think it was an interesting move, right? So because of the proven performance escalator, Jack Jones was on the last year of his deal. Yep. His salary got bumped up to $3.4 million. That is something that you can negotiate. Like the Packers, for example, who was the offensive lineman from Ole Miss that we had? He was no good. Royce Newman. Yes. He was no good at passing off stunts is what I meant to say. Not that he was no good. So he got the proven performance escalator, his salary bumped up, and the Packers were like, yo, clearly we are not going to keep you at this number. Let's, work down to a middle ground salary. And again, none of that is guaranteed, which I think is a failure on the union's part. Why are you bumping up salaries if it's not guaranteed? For these rookie contract players, all it does is incentivize teams to cut them.
Release them. Yeah, you're basically getting a pay raise to get cut. Like it's a really crazy situation where it's actually doing the player more of a disservice in a lot of situations than it's doing them a favor, which is a crazy. They need to guarantee the portion of it that's the bonus. Maybe not the original base salary, but the portion that's increased needs to be guaranteed in that situation. But I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah. Jack Jones, he was a very talented player. was, I think by the end of it, ended up becoming a college All-American. He was at USC first, if I remember correctly, then went to junior college and then Arizona State. Had an incident where he robbed a Panda Express, pretty famously.
Whomst among us.
Yeah, I mean, got to get the Kung Pao chicken or whatever the heck they got there. Spent 3 years with the Patriots, got traded to the Raiders, or 2 years with the Patriots, got traded to the Raiders, was on the final year of his deal. Was at 3.4 million. Do you know who like the Raiders' highest paid cornerback is right now?
Eric
3.5
Stokes.
million. It is Eric Stokes, if you can believe that. That is pretty damn incredible. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the trade-off that they made. I mean, this is a guy who started all but one game last year for the Raiders. Didn't cross over with Bisaccia or anything like that. So I don't know if he even counts as a former Raiders DB in the same way that we've been looking at former Raiders DBs recently. But yeah, I mean, the fact that there was no market for him, I mean, maybe potentially, off-field stuff could have been a factor. I'm not discounting that by any means, but I mean, he's on $3.5 million, which is relatively nothing for a starting caliber cornerback. So, interesting. I'm interested in seeing just like how many teams think that they're good at cornerback going into the draft. I mean, I know it's not everyone. Maybe it changes post-draft, but he's out there now, right? So if you know, hey, if you don't want to pay the picks for Jair Alexander, okay, well, we can go sign a Jack Jones who's, in his mid-20s or whatever it is, and take a dice roll on the locker room stuff.
And you basically know you're getting them for less than 3 million, because if you wanted them at 3 million, you just throw a conditional 2027 7th round pick, at them, and they take it because it's better than nothing. So you can get them for cheaper than that for sure. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I still think that's the number one thing surrounding Green Bay that just still has no real clarity on it, is what's going to happen with Jair, and just seeing another corner available kind of muddies that market even more.
Workouts start next week.
What's that?
Workouts start next week, the 15th, right? Next Tuesday.
Crazy.
See if he shows up in town.
It'd be interesting. That would be the next sort of domino to be, that would like really be a level of intrigue. I guess we would probably know. I'm sure one of the beat guys would get word of if Jair, or we'll get an Instagram post or something if he's in town for something. So yeah, that'll be interesting.
For sure. I mean, they take head counts, right? They take head counts on that stuff. So
yeah. Latest on top 30 visits. Anyone we should be aware of from a top 30 visit standpoint? I'll let you bring it up there for a second. I know you guys have got it cooking over on Acme Packing Company.
Yeah, actually a couple of them. Did we talk about Matthew? I mean, we talked about Matthew Golden. I don't think that we talked about him in the context of visiting the top 30
visit. Yeah, because it was after our show, right?
So we kind of got ahead of that one. They brought in another receiver in Emeka Egbuka for a 2-day visit. That one's really interesting because I think when you look at these top guys, right? So like the edge rushers, right? Shamar Stewart, low production, high upside, right? Michael Williams, kind of the same thing. So, you're looking at maybe just kind of what makes him tick, right? And those kind of things on the visit. James Pierce Jr., it's not off field. It's more just like personality stuff and just like wearing on people, right? Offensive line, they brought in Josh Simmons, the left tackle out of Ohio State. He's obviously coming off of the patella tendon tear. So, pretty big medical. Matthew Golden, the wide receiver out of Texas. He was a super late breakout, right? Hadn't had a 100-yard game until the SEC championship game, for perspective, right? Didn't hit 1,000 yards any of his seasons in college football. Was not a super big transfer coming out this past year when he moved from Houston to Texas. So it was like, a pretty late breakout, really like one of the stars of the postseason in college football. Emeka Egbuka is a pretty clear evaluation as far as I see it. I mean, I know he played in the slot a lot, and it's kind of that Justin Jefferson thing where it's like, yeah, he played in the slot because, Jamar Chase was outside, right? It's kind of that situation with Egbuka where, okay, Marvin Harrison Jr. is playing the X, and then you get Jeremiah Smith. Like, yeah, okay, we're just going to put Egbuka in the slot, and then whoever the Z receiver is outside of Egbuka is just basically running off coverage, right? I mean, that was really kind of what they had going at Ohio State. So interesting that they brought him in for a 2-day visit, especially considering that like among the like first round caliber guys or even like first 2 round caliber guys. He's really clean in terms of just the evaluation. And it's like, yeah, we're just looking at the player. Like Isaiah Bond, again, we brought him up, I think last time. He's a personality guy, right? That every team is in on. Siobhan Revel, the cornerback at ECU, is coming off of the non-contact tear ACL. So this is like the first clean eval. So that's what's really interesting to me is like, okay, is this the guy that they're, break in case of emergency type situation if they can't get one of these D tackles or something like that? I don't know.
Okay, I got to get back to Igbuka for a second, but did you see me post the odds of positions today of what the most likely Packers pick is, what the Vegas odds are?
No, do they count all defensive linemen together?
It did count all defensive linemen together.
That
yes.
one, because if that's not one, it should be one.
So here's the crazy thing. I posted this on yesterday on the 6th. So yeah, yesterday on Sunday. Yesterday, it was number 1 was corner at plus 170. Number 2 was defensive lineman, edge or tackle at plus 185. Then wide receiver plus 430, offensive line plus 470, and then linebacker 2,900, safety 5,000. Those were the odds. Today it got updated. So this was as of 3:00 p.m. Central Time on Monday. Defensive line, defensive tackle, defensive end, anything in that realm went to the highest now, which makes by far and away the most sense, especially combining those two categories at plus 120. Second was corner at plus 190. Third was now offensive line, but it moved to plus 500. Fourth is wide receiver, which moved down to plus 650. Plus 650 for a wide receiver in the first round for Green Bay, or at pick 20, or their first round draft pick, I guess odds is what it is.
Personally, if I had to guess, I'd go, defensive line 1, wide receiver 2, corner 3, offensive line. It's going to be really hard, man, because they're still trying to figure out how to get Jordan Morgan on the field. I think Josh Simmons makes the most sense because if you think that he's the best left tackle in this draft class, which a lot of people do, and you just go for the future. I 100% could see that.
They're going to so take him, and we're just going to hear about urgency for the next 4 months of like, oh, you wanted urgency, and you picked a guy that is not going to probably play for you until 2026.
Yeah, we'll have to hear all the Justin Harrell stuff.
Don't want any of it. I mean, I'm fine. I haven't watched him yet, but like if he's best,
he's good. He's good. I mean, a patella tendon tear is a scary thing. Like that's not as clean of a recovery as an ACL, but like he already worked out at the pro day. Not timed stuff, obviously, but he was doing like the online drills. He didn't have a knee brace on, any of that stuff. Simmons also is one of these guys who is going to have, one of these late April, like private workouts. I mean, they're basically another pro day it's just an individual pro day for these guys, that he's going to end up doing. So, I think Simmons, seems to be progressing well, but I'm also not a doctor, so you probably shouldn't listen to me about that stuff.
All right, so let's go back to Igbuka for a second, because this was the fights on the Twitter streets today was whether or not Igbuka is a slot wide receiver or an outside wide receiver. When I watched him, I will admit I didn't have a clean feel for him as an outside wide receiver, not in any way, shape, or form saying he can't do it. I think he is going to be better as a slot wide receiver, and had more of the question of, if you have a Jaden Reed already, is there room for both of them on the offense? Again, I think you can play him outside, but is that going to be the best way to use him? Other people disagree with that evaluation, just say he can be good wherever you want to put him. He was, I'll be totally transparent. He was a bit of a tough eval for me, one way or the other. I didn't love any one aspect of his game. I did like all aspects of his game, if that makes sense. Like there's nothing that's really missing in any way, shape, or form, but you feel more comfortable with him completely being an outside guy if need be?
Yeah, I don't really worried about it that much. I think he could dabble a little bit of X, a little bit of Z. I mean, he certainly isn't like one of these 4-3 speed guys who's just going to stretch the field, which I think is kind of the primary concern for the Packers wide receiver room right now. But I mean, he's big enough to be able to handle a lot of the stuff that LaFleur asked for him. As far as being able to play him with Reed at the same time, I have no issue with that. As you know, pending who the third receiver out there is going to be.
Sure.
But like he can block, which you can't say about a lot of these receivers, right? Like we talked
He's
about Bond.
willing.
Yeah, I mean Bond can't block,
No.
is not willing. Golden can't block, is willing. Igbuka can kind of get after it a little bit. So yeah, I mean I kind of see it the same way as you, where it's, you know, there he doesn't really have an ace card, but he's like pretty good all around. I mean, I'm not talking about an all pro here. I just think that, yeah, he's going to be a solid receiver. I do kind of wonder, like, I don't think it helps him against man coverage. Like, I don't think that that's a huge
No.
stride in terms of
Totally agreed.
being able to beat man coverage. I think, you know, the combination of Igbuka and Reed can grill some zone, right? Just because of how, you know, good they all are all around. They can attack different spots in the field, all that type of stuff. But you're putting a lot on whoever that third receiver is, right? Because again, I don't think Reed is going to get on the field unless he's in 3 receiver sets, because that's how they've used him for 2 years now. So
I think Green Bay is interested in wide receiver, but I kind of think that they are faking it to some extent. I think they are trying to get plausible deniability that they are not looking for a premium defensive lineman either at edge or defensive tackle. And so that if like a Shamar Stewart or a Michael Williams or some of those, you know, one of them falls to 22, every other team's not being like, well, Green Bay's taking him at 23. So if we want him, we better get to 22. And having some plausible deniability of like, well, they went and saw Tet McMillan. Goody went and saw Tet McMillan live. They brought in Ibuka for 2 days. Like they brought in Matthew Golden. Like they're clearly interested. I think there is some level of interest legitimately. I still think that, and then like Goody going out of his way to be like, yeah, we don't feel like we need to chase an edge rusher. It just feels like they're trying everything they can to be like, look over there. We know we don't need an edge rusher. Definitely don't trade in front of us at pick 22, because we definitely don't want an edge rusher at 23. Meanwhile, they're desperately hoping that the right edge rusher, defensive tackle falls to them at 23.
yeah, I mean, relatively, like a lot of their visits are like first round guys.
Yeah.
And we only have like 12 of the 30 right now.
Yep.
So maybe it's just we do got all the top guys in the beginning, but like that's not usually how their visits kind of work out. So they're doing a lot of work. I mean, they sent everyone, all 3 of the top decision makers to Oregon, right? So you're talking Harmon, Josh Connolly potentially in the second round or in the first round. Goot and John Eric Sullivan both went to Texas. You know, they have like 3 first-round picks there at positions that they could potentially take. I don't think you can really pin down based off of their visits or anything what direction that they're going to go. I just seems like they're doing the work. They're bringing in guys who have, I mean, again, outside of Igbuka, that they might have question marks about in the evaluation process, where they're like, let's double check on this thing. Not super surprised by any of it, honestly.
No, same, totally same. I threw a message out to some friends in the group chat the other day, asking for if your life depended on it, who are your 5 most likely Packers draft picks as of today? You said Harmon, Grant, Nolan, Stewart, and Ravel, but you kind of had a question mark after Ravel as maybe the 5th one. But just kind of take us through your thought process on those 5.
Yeah, I think Harmon and Grant are both pretty clean evaluations at defensive tackle. They're kind of different bodies. So, you know, what you want to do with Kenny, I think, would depend a lot on which one of those guys you get, right? If you take Grant, Kenny will probably play the 3. Probably not going to get a lot of pass production out of that, but you'll be able to stop the run really well.
Yep.
If you get Harmon, he's going to be the 3 technique. Kenny's probably going to have to play the nose tackle. And Harmon, you know, might be, I mean, your defensive line honestly might be better all around because of that move, because of the athleticism at both of those spots, relatively. I think those guys make the most sense to me. And then it's the next tier down. Walter Nolan, I haven't really studied him too in depth, but I know a lot of people like him. I know when I talk to NFL people, the worry is never about personality or how he fits in the locker room. Well, I guess maybe a little bit of that, but he's a quiet dude who just goes about his business and then just leaves. And He's been at like 5 different schools in like 6 years. And just, goes to the highest offer. He's just not like he's not a problem, but he's so influential that you want him in a bigger leadership role, I guess is
Sure.
the best way to think about it. And I think that might rub some NFL teams in a wrong way. That might be one reason why he's available at 23 for the Packers. But again, I think defensive tackle is probably like where they're picking and where the draft is good. I think defensive tackle makes the most sense. The next two guys, Shamar, I could just see teams not necessarily being in on Shamar. I think Michael is a little bit of a better run defender. He played a little bit more on the interior. He was dealing with the ankle. Like he gets a couple more of these excuses than Shamar will get, even though I think Shamar is a better pass rusher when you look at his traits. So I think if someone drops, it might be Shamar, and then Revel is just you're kind of betting on the future type of thing. I mean, I might at this point I might replace Josh Simmons with him. I don't have a good feel for who that fifth guy is. But if you're talking about, hey, we're looking at the future, we don't really care about what this guy is bringing to the table 2025. I think Simmons and Revel are probably, high up on
that list.
Yeah.
Makes a ton of sense. I want to get to those defensive ends because you mentioned a couple there that I'm really intrigued. We talked about Shamar Stewart already. Let's just kind of start there really quick. We can kind of go through this one pretty easily. Has anything changed on your thinking on Shamar Stewart at all? I don't know why it would. I'm still in the same boat as well. I think he's phenomenally talented. I wish there was a little bit more finishing / production. If there would be, he would be gone probably in the top 10 anyway. So that's why he's falling to pick 23 potentially. I'm very interested to see where he goes. And I think he has all the talent in the world to be as good as he wants to be. And just got to put a couple other things together to kind of complete the puzzle. But really, really fun, talented player.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd take him top 5. I'm not changing that stance. I mean, maybe if I got to know him a little bit and some things rub me the wrong way or something, which is, again, I don't have any information that says that. But like maybe that would change. But as far as the film, like I watched the film in January, dog. Like I kind of set it and forget it with defensive ends because I kind of know what I'm looking at this point. Yep. So I know what my opinions are going to be at the very least, like whether they shake out or not. I don't have a magic 8 ball. I can't tell the future. I hate to break it to you guys, but as far as my rankings and stuff, like I don't really change my mind until you see these guys on an NFL field, I guess.
I'm going to do a deep dive tomorrow on Michael Williams. So I'm going to plead the fifth on the majority of this. I'll let you kind of do some heavy lifting on this one, and everyone's going to have to kind of wait for mine tomorrow. But thoughts on Michael Williams?
Yeah. So if you guys look at any of those past production charts, you'll notice Michael Williams is like one of the few top 50 draft picks, I would say, over the last decade, who's actually worse as a productive pass rusher than Shamar Stewart. A lot of that, he plays 4-eye technique, so he's playing inside shoulder of the tackle. He's basically playing like, honestly, okay. So this is the crazy thing. They basically played him on rundowns the same role that we play Kenny Clark, right? That's the perspective.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he's not getting a whole lot of pass rush production. He dealt with an ankle injury in week 1. He said it limited him to about 60%. He's another one of these guys who's going to have a late workout just to prove to teams that, he's healthy in late April and stuff like that. I think he is a athletic run defender with pass rushing upside that is not necessarily fully built out right now. So he has a lot of inside counters. What I mean by that, like an inside swim, an inside spin, things to reduce, or I guess shorten the path to the quarterback and stuff like that. I don't know how he's going to win in the C gap. I don't know how he's going to win on the edge right now. He has the athleticism to do some of this stuff, but I haven't seen it on film. I haven't seen the bend from Williams the same way I've seen the bend from Shamar Stewart. And that's my only qualm there. Personally, I would have Stewart ahead of Michael. I think Michael in the draft is actually going to go ahead of Stewart.
Yep.
Just because you've already seen like, so Michael replaced Javon Walker, like as a freshman, right? And they just basically played him in the same role. And he held that role for 3 years. And Walker was a guy who went first overall, didn't have any of the, the big sacks, anything like that. In the last few years, he's had back-to-back double-digit sack seasons. So I think it's just some of it might be the logo, but there are a lot of comparisons between him and
Trayvon.
Trayvon. Did I say Javon Walker?
You did say Javon, which
I
I
know.
was I loved so much. I wish it was Javon Walker. Did you go back and watch 2023, Michael?
I did. After the visit, I looked back at the 2023 stuff. Again, didn't find the answers that I necessarily wanted about him being able to bend the edge and stuff like that. How are you going to win in the C gap? Definitely looked more fleet of foot. I think there was a little bit more explosion there, but didn't really answer like the things he was good at, he was better at in 2023. With the things that I still don't know where he's going to fit into the NFL, like those still are absent on that 2023 film.
That's a very fair eval. And yeah, when I first watched the 2024, I'm like, I was flummoxed to say the least. I didn't know about the ankle injury at that point. I just turned on the film and watched, and I'm like, the lack of productivity was there like Shamar, but you didn't see any of the explosiveness or the freaky athletic traits of Shamar. I'm like, what are we doing here? Why is this even a question? And then I go back and watch 2023, and then I'm like, all right, I can absolutely see what the upside is about here and why there are people buzzing about him a little bit more. There's a play where he goes up against a double team and he just bench presses it and doesn't budge. Like, he is a very, very fun run defender on the outside, and think he can kick inside. Obviously they did that with him this year. And like you said, how they utilized him, and yeah, very fun player. I'll talk obviously again a lot more about him tomorrow, but I do think he's probably gone by pick 23.
Yeah, I think he's out, especially with teams like Cincinnati and stuff. Like Cincinnati is one of these teams that loves length, right? It's kind of hard to imagine them passing on, a Michael Williams or something like that if he's available. So
let's get the next three are really, really fun. Mike Green, not necessarily the usual kind of Packers cup of tea, but obviously extremely, extremely productive in his role, not playing in a, Power 5, school or what. I don't even know if they're considered anymore, but he's very, very active and, productive pass rusher.
Marshall is funny. Marshall is a CUSA team. They went to the title game. I think they might have won the title game, but then they didn't play in a bowl game because their coach left for Southern Miss. At one point, they asked Southern Miss's coach, what their NIL budget was like. And he was like, we got this place that gives you free biscuits if you play on the team. So, yeah, very different in the Power 5. One of the big things that you got to talk about with Mike Green on the front end, not a fun thing. Sexual assault allegations dating back to both his time at Virginia and in the high school and at high school. From my understanding, this is not going to impact his draft stock. Whether you want to let the NFL be your arbiter of morals or not, you can decide what to do with that. From my understanding, how the NFL is essentially trading this is they viewed the case that Virginia had as something that was not super definitive, and that Virginia wanted to move on and not deal with the PR. At the time, remember, Mike Green had not been a proven prospect or anything like that. He actually came to school as a wide receiver and ended up getting converted to defensive end. Ends up at Marshall, leads the FBS in sacks last year. On the field, right after Stewart, I probably would have Mike Green. This is, if you're looking for an edge bender, pure designated pass rusher type of guy, he is the next best one in this class, in my opinion. Probably the second best one behind Abdul Carter, honestly, if you're just talking about it from that perspective. I think he's an underrated run defender for a guy at a small school who is not the biggest guy in the world. I think this is, if we're betting on guys, 10 sack potential or something like that, like, it's Carter, it's Stewart, and then it's Green to me. That's kind of how I would set the odds in this draft class. But I know everyone doesn't think about it like that. I think he's probably going to go mid-first round. I don't think he's going to be available for the Packers. If the Packers do take him, it'll be really interesting to see what Gooch says on the podium about his off-field, I guess is the way you dance around these words. Devontae Wyatt's situation wasn't exactly the same. But, Goot basically was like, he didn't touch a woman, and that's kind of what we rule off for that. He's gonna have some explaining to do if he takes Mike Green, after he's said those words, and then also the Brandon McManus stuff, potentially popping back up. PR matters for teams. So we'll see what happens with the Mike Green evaluation. I don't think that it's going to impact his draft stock holistically at the NFL level. I think someone's going to bite, just whether he's available for the Packers, whether they're willing to do it, whether they're willing to go after a smaller pass rusher in the first place, which kind of like breaks their mold, all that stuff. All open questions as far as I see it.
I view him, obviously, again, off-field stuff aside, he's just one of these pass rushers that just has an innate ability and desire and hunting ability to get to and find a quarterback. Like it's just there inside of him. And I've talked about this before. It was one of the very first things, just like probably over 20 years ago, that I read of like some pass rushers, doesn't matter the height, the weight, the size, the speed, who they're going against. If it's a D3 guy or Tony Baselli, they're just going to figure out some freaking way to get to the quarterback. And I just watching Mike Green, it was just like he had that, like, I don't care what's in front of me. I don't care what you're going to do. I'm not going to obviously get there every play, but I'm going to get there. I'm going to find a way to get there at some point in time. And he pretty much did and made an impact in just about every single game. Unbelievable change of direction, showed off that ankle flexion that you like to see in those situations. Obviously the 3-cone showed that as well. They really enjoyed him on twist and stunts, finds ways to make big plays in just about every single game. Kept playing through the whistle, kept trying to make plays, even though if, things didn't go his way to start the play. Just fantastic body control, good first step. And I do think, like you said, despite being a little bit undersized, gave good effort against the run and was not just going to, give up on the play or just, cede it and say like, all right, it's a run play. I'm not going to, like, he battled through it and still was I think, adequate run defender.
He went toe to toe with Simmons, the left tackle at Ohio State that we just brought up. He played Virginia Tech early on in the season. I know, I think they're CUSA. No, maybe they're Sunbelt now. They are Sunbelt now.
You got me.
CUSA's gotten all reshaped 1,000 times. Sunbelt is decent football. Like, it's not the MAC. It's not CUSA. It's not the FCS. It's a, that tier in between that and the Power 5. And, he brought it damn near every week. So, yeah, just on-field talents. Like, I get Carter and Stewart as like potential top 5 guys. Green would probably be, a borderline top 10 pick on my board if I had to just list talent.
All right, 2 more guys that I want to go through in a little bit more detail, and then I'll let you throw anyone else out there that you want to cover. Who do you want to go through first, James Pierce or Donovan Ezrakwu?
So I'm a little lower on both of them than everyone else. So I guess let's talk about them together. So James Pierce is a guy who was in a wide 9 stance. Basically got to play offensive tackles in an island. At Tennessee, we're talking about Stewart, Michael Williams. They don't really get put in the right situations, right? James Pierce was a guy who was in the right situation every single play. He got to play on the open end, opposite of tight ends, in a wide 9 stance, and basically just got to treat every single down like it was 3rd and long, right? When they motion a tight end against Tennessee, you don't see them, bump over a linebacker. What they do is they flip the entire front. Like, the defensive tackles will switch. The linebackers will switch. The defensive ends will switch. I don't know why more teams didn't take advantage of them and do like, a hurry up motion, get that guy,
right,
moving, and the defense is just, caught in a Chinese fire drill, right? I think he was put in a great situation. And I don't know how that translates to the next level, because I think his best trait is obviously his speed, right? I don't know how many other traits he has beyond that. And I understand that the speed is great, but I think this is a guy that ideally you want to play on 3rd downs as a designated pass rusher in those wide 9 sets. And, the Philadelphia Eagles just signed one of those guys, and they couldn't, he was a healthy scratch for the Super Bowl, right? So that's certainly not for everyone. And then you start getting into the off-field stuff, and people at Tennessee are saying, hey, he was a great talent. I'm happy he's not here anymore, right? So I think he's probably going to go day 2. I think his ideal role is just a high end designated pass rusher. If his head is screwed on tight, I don't think you want him being an every down D end. I think the first round is just far too rich. Donovan Azaraku, the player I'm the least confident about evaluating in this edge class. He is so unique. You see all these numbers from the pro day and stuff that like show, or the combine that show his bend and things like that, and the 3-cone. He's not that kind of a player. I don't think that he has a good enough get off to really just be like a speed bend guy. Guys who are on the smaller side and don't have a great get off, there's not a great history on that guy translating to the next level. Here's the really interesting part, though. Ezuraku is extremely crafty as a pass rusher. Like his athleticism is secondary to me because there's so much stuff that he's setting guys up in real subtle ways that, like, okay, I don't need to know what his 3-cone time is because he's slowing down anyway, right? Like, he's a really slow burn type of pass rusher. I don't expect him to get a lot of like instant pressure. He's like Chandler Jones to me, but Chandler Jones, like frame wise, was like the longest player we had ever seen. Like, can damn near grab his knees while he's standing straight up, right? And Ezuraku is a smaller guy, so like he's like a sawed-off Chandler Jones, and we have not seen a sawed-off Chandler Jones at the NFL level, and that's what makes his evaluation really hard for me. I don't think I would pull the trigger in the first round. Wish the best for him. All that, like, I got no issues with him. It's just I don't think we've seen a guy like this, Andy. I don't know. So I've been asking anyone, like, who does he remind you of? And then they bring up names. I'm like, I still like sawed-off Chandler Jones better, and that one still barely makes sense. So
did Pierce remind you of anyone at all?
The other Tennessee guy who's with the Rams now, I forget his name. He was drafted like in the 3rd round. Was it Byron Jones? No, Byron. I'm spacing.
I know exactly who you mean, and I can't think of his name either, and it's going to bother me. He's with the Rams now, or he started with the Rams?
Why did Byron Young?
Byron Young. That's what we're looking at. Yeah, actually, that makes sense.
He was picked 77th. He was also, so I'm looking at height, weight, speed right now, right? 6'2", 250 pounds, 4'3". Pretty much a designated pass rusher, 15.5 sacks over 2 years, but no one's kind of banging the table saying like he's going to be the next star of the league. It's just, if your quarterback holds onto the ball, he'll get a lot of cleanup sacks. Like, that's kind of what I think Pierce is going to be.
Yeah, I'll start with Pierce. I just immediately turned it on and I'm like, yep, that's not my cup of tea. I just like the tall, linear, super fat. I'm just like, that's not what I want at edge. And I watched the first couple games and I'm like, yep, don't see it. And I kept going on, and like, he did, I think, actually have a pretty decent bull rush, which I was a little bit surprised by. Like, obviously great speed. He found ways to kind of get to the quarterback and just be like length and speed and just limbs. And it didn't always result in plays, but it was disruptive. I liked him more as I went along, and it would still, my kind of final call would be like, I would let somebody else be like, I'll find out watching you somewhere else. Just again, some of those guys, like, you just watch him and you're just like, it's just not my cup. He's just not my cup of tea. I think he might be able to be good. And maybe like similar, like you said, but Byron Young for the Rams, I think it makes a lot of sense. But
I just don't know how he's not going to get gutted in the run game. I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's not about the pass rushing talent, because I think if you just need him to get in a wide 9 and get after the quarterback, like, you can kind of set a timer with him, right? But just how many snaps can you realistically play this guy? I mean, that's my big concern. Is you take this guy early 2nd round, and then you still can only play him like 12 snaps a game. Like, that would stink. Yeah, that's not a good use of assets.
No, it's not at all. Ezuraku, Justis, I loved this man so much. This was immediately one of my guys. I totally get what you're saying of like, show me where this has worked in the past. And I don't have a great comp for you. Like, I'd have to really think. And I don't, you might be just right that there just might not be one. What you mentioned about his game, the craftiness, to me, like, I love watching offensive tackles when I'm watching edge rushers to see how they kind of go against these guys and just how much a pain in the ass they are. Like I learned so much more sometimes of like, all right, actually, I want to be in the offensive tackle's head rather than seeing what the defensive ends do. I want to see how the offensive tackle's responding. And if they're just in like no man's land of like, I don't know what's going to come next. That's what I saw from some of these tackles going against Ezeraku of like, I have no idea what he's going to do next. I don't know if he's going to try to bend around me. I don't know if he's going to try to go inside, outside. Like I am just in hell trying to figure out what this guy is going to do. He's slippery, never know what's coming next, unpredictable. Obviously had the productivity in the sacks. A natural, again, knack for getting to the quarterback. I liked his lateral agility. I did see there's a couple plays where he was almost like at a crazy angle bending around the edge and still had the balance to stay up and then get to the quarterback. Like you could see some of those plays. Now the explosiveness and how he gets to some of those spots, to your point, that's again a little bit more of the question, but he almost sets you up so well, or like you don't know what's going to happen. It's almost like that pitcher in baseball who doesn't have 99. So they've got to have an unbelievable changeup so that their 90-mile-an-hour fastball looks like looks 99. Like that's almost how I view Ezeraku, is like everything, it just like sets up everything else. And just when you think he's going to go like one way, he's going another. And that's what makes him so dangerous to me. I don't know if this is going to be Green Bay's cup of tea with the size. It probably is not going to be. The only thing that would maybe connect it a little bit more is obviously the connection to Jeff Hafley in Boston College. And if he vouches for the guy in some ridiculous way, and Goody's like, all right, he's a great pass rusher. We like him. We're trusting you on this one. And the only other thing, Justice, is we have yet to see Green Bay sign or trade or draft a single defensive lineman in the Jeff Hafley era. I think we kind of know that he still has his guys that he wants, big, strong, physical. I think that's still going to be his cup of tea, but we have yet to see him acquire anyone in the Jeff Hafley era along the defensive line. So I am intrigued to see if he has a little bit more flexibility to kind of go after maybe a player like this, or like a Mike Green or someone like that.
I just thought of another comparison, and it's not great. I think Ezeraku had a lot more bend than this guy. Baholi Kikaha, who ended up, I think he was the second round for the Saints out of Washington. The problem with Kikaha is Kikaha just like had like 3 ACL injuries coming in.
A lot of injuries, right?
Yeah, and then had another one. So like I don't even count that, but like Kikaha is the last guy that I remember who was just like this level of a technician. And I think Kikaha was like a black belt in judo. And that was the point that I was going to make about like Ezeraku. It's just like, he's so smart and crafty on like how to use your own body against you, that it's like almost surprising he's not some like black belt martial arts kid, right? Maybe he is, and I was
going to say maybe he is, and he's so good at disguising everything that it's just going to hit you out of left field, then you don't even see it coming.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, again, I get it. I get it with him. He's a little bit of a slow burn instead of like an instant pass rush guy to me. I think I'm in the camp of I'll let someone else
figure it out.
Him.
I'll take him, Justice. We'll
yeah, I just don't have the testicular fortitude to say like that's going to be my guy. Like I'm just uncertain on him, and I'm okay with saying I'm uncertain for the most part. Like these other guys are pretty cookie cutter.
There's some like that. Like for me, Pierce was a little bit more like that of like, he's not my cup of tea, but the more I watched him, the more I'm like, all right, I can kind of get the vision here, even if it's not what I normally like. That was to me more of like, again, I'm gonna let somebody else do the guesswork there. And if it works out for them, awesome. Kudos to you. Yeah, I really liked him, but I liked Stewart a lot. I like Michael Williams a lot. Yeah. And I like Mike Green too. I just, with the size, the small school, the off the field, and probably just being gone, I would be pretty stunned if we sat here at 23 and Mike Green was the pick for Green Bay. That would be very, very surprising to me.
So those are the guys that you've seen so far?
Yes, those are guys I've seen. Obviously, a lot of other ones that we could go over as well. So if there's any other ones that you want to get off your chest, you go for it. I tried to get to more today and life happened, so I didn't get to more. But yeah, go in any direction you want.
Oh, no sweat. It took me like a month to watch all these guys. Nick Skirton out of A&M. This was Stewart's teammate.
I was going to watch.
He was considered like a top 5, top 10 pick coming into this year. Was a big transfer out of Purdue, one of the biggest guys in the portal last year. Didn't really translate to pass rush production for A&M. I don't think they really want those guys going after the passer. I think that was kind of a mistake going there. Looks like he put on a bunch of bad weight. I need to go back to his 2023 stuff, but his 2024 is not good. Probably wouldn't even take him day 2 based off of the 2024 stuff, but I have to go back to the 2023. Landon Jackson out of Arkansas. Kind of surprised this guy isn't rising up boards a little bit more, just from a height, weight, speed type of perspective. He showed up at LSU as a defensive tackle, ended up switching to DN, transferring to Arkansas. He's kind of an LVN clone. And I understand this is a better pass rushing class than when LVN came out. But the full round discrepancy between where LVN went and where Landon Jackson's going doesn't really make sense to me. So I wouldn't be surprised if, Arrow starts moving up closer to draft day and coaches are involved, all that stuff. Peter Schrager tweets out the day before the draft, like, this guy's going to go around like 20 or something. Wouldn't be shocked by that at all.
Love when those things happen.
Yep. Ohio State, they got 2 of them. JT, a little bursty. I think he's just like a solid backup right now. I wouldn't take him in the second. I'd probably take him a little later. Jack Sawyer, I think, is a guy that 3-4 teams are going to like more than 4-3 teams just because he's going to be able to drop and do some of that stuff. Princely Umanmielen, the DN from Mississippi, not a great tester. I think he could get after the quarterback. I kind of think like late second round, early third round is probably going to be the range that he's going to go. I think he's a better player than Kingsley was coming out, even though Kingsley had, all those accolades, pass rush production, all that stuff. I think Princely's like that, but just a little bit better. Braden Swinson out of LSU, he's probably the most underrated guy to me in this class. He's just like B's across the board, does not have athletic limitations. His frame is good for a guy his size, is playing better ball every single season. I think it's just, slowly, arrow pointing up on this guy. I think he'll probably end up being like a second round pick. Kyle Kennard, I was not a big fan of him, the kid out of South Carolina. I just didn't know what he did traits wise. Ashton Geloit, is that how you say his name? The DN out of Louisville.
You got me.
Had a sneaky good like RAS score, right? You watch him on film, it doesn't really translate. Like there's sometimes guys do this. Like Jordan Willis was a guy like this back in the day. Another one of these kind of like fire hydrant defensive ends that never really showed that athleticism on the field. And then all of a sudden he's just like really good at the testing numbers. And you're like, well, he's a crazy athlete. It's like, doesn't match with the film. So I would not be super optimistic about him. Oladejo, the DN from UCLA. Andy, have you seen this guy? So
I've not.
He was a off-ball linebacker for Cal for 2 years, transferred to UCLA this past year, declared early. I think he's had like 8 sacks like his entire college career. Mel Kiper keeps mocking him in the first round. Here is the thing, Andy. Oladejo is a member of, so it's a group of, they call themselves churches, Andy.
Okay.
ICC/ICOC. They are banned on a lot of college campuses for their like predatory recruiting, which also involves what former members would call like pyramid schemes. There's, if you look up ICC or ICOC and like Rolling Stones cult into Google, you'll get some articles that'll like pop out. He was not only a member of that church/cult, whatever you want to call it, at Berkeley that got shut down, but then when he transferred to UCLA, he was the second name on the petition for the founding of the branch in Los Angeles. This is a big deal for NFL teams who are trying to figure out what the heck that they're going to do with him. I would guess there are few people who are going to take as many visits as Oladejo is this offseason. If you remember the Adam, what is it, Muema situation, the running back out of SDSU a couple years ago.
I don't remember exactly, but yeah.
He was like supposed to be a 4th round pick and then just didn't get drafted. And I think he's busy doing other things right now. That's kind of the scenario with Oladejo. Gotcha. So I don't think the draft media has really caught up on that situation. Some of that stuff is public record, by the way. Like him being the second name on the petition, all that stuff like that. Those are things in the public record. Tyler Dunn of Go Long, when he had Bob McGinn for the defensive end series, one of the scouts, their little blurbs was like, he's got to figure out what he needs to do with like the Colt situation or if he cares about football. And I was like, the hell is this? So I started digging into it, calling some people around the league, looked into some public record stuff, and kind of was able to piece it together over the past week.
Can you get to the quarterback justice?
I get he's trying to do a lot of things apparently. So yeah.
He's like all of a sudden he meets with we're not even gonna go out on that path. These are the beautiful, wonderful things that happen during the NFL draft timeframe that we don't get to see on the back end, and that teams spend a ridiculous amount of time, effort, energy, and resources into figuring out exactly who these players are, if they're worth investing in, if they are a good likelihood to reach their potential, and if there's going to be any sort of off-field or any concerns that could be an issue from a PR standpoint or anything moving forward. It is a lot of that, a ton of that. So we get to do the fun stuff and just go and watch the tape, which is really fun. All the other stuff, not always as fun, but you get to do some of that as well, apparently, digging through public records. So kudos to you.
Yeah, it would have kept me up. You can't tell me that there's an NFL draft prospect who's allegedly a Colt member and
not looking
have answers. I gotta. That's what I tell these guys a lot of times. I'm like, look, I'm not going to spill the beans. I'm not going to tweet it out. I'm not going to report it. I got to know this for myself because I'm not going to be able to sleep at night until I get an answer about something. And they respect that. So
that's amazing. If you were a GM, you had a third round grade on a player and you brought him in for a visit and he told you the intricacies of a pyramid scheme, how far would it move him down your board? Allegedly.
I don't know, man. Like what? Wasn't KGB kind of?
Similar. I don't know if he was at the time. I don't know if he was at the time. I don't know. There's been some situations. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah, these aren't the most well-adjusted people.
Yeah, fun times. We'll see. We'll see where he goes. Now another interesting name to keep an eye on and see where he ends up. All the medical, all the off field, all of it. And I had the opportunity to talk to somebody high up within the Packers medical room about their process for medical evals, and basically said, if they mark him or mark a player as not draftable or like major, like that Goody basically just takes him off the board. Like it's not even like there's no pushback, there's no anything. It's just, all right, he's off the board.
Yep. So that I can give you guys some not Packers information, but so like that was a big deal with Vince Spiegel. Vince Spiegel had a lot of second round grades that year, and a lot of teams just struck him off the board. And what you end up doing is you have a sub board, right? So you have your big board and then you have your sub board, and your sub board is just names who you've evaluated all these things, but have been stricken for, off-field medicals, whatever it might be. NFL teams are scouting everyone. So the fact that their draft board at the end of the year is only like 120 players long doesn't mean that they don't have those evaluations. It's just, all right, Doc took that one away from me. So yeah, I mean, that stuff happens. That stuff is real for sure.
And you bring up a great point too, and this stuff matters as well as like the top 30 visits and all the work that they do on it, because it's not just for the draft. It when they sign Nate Hobbs this offseason, they go back and they look at all the work that they did on Nate Hobbs going into the draft. And when they, when they bring in Kamal Haddon, the corner who was a 6th round pick last year, who they get off of waivers or a practice squad. I forget which one it was. I think it was off of waivers. I don't know, actually. Either way, he ended up in Green Bay. And like they can go back to all of their notes that they had during the draft. So even if a guy ends up off their board or like they don't think they're going to draft the player, all of that stuff still matters immensely for when they become available, whether it be via priority free agency, trade opportunities, whatever it may be down the road. That all of that stuff still is super valuable.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys go through it, you guys would probably be shocked how many of these like later round guys or undrafted free agents the Packers bring in don't get the opportunity to sign or draft the first time around, but then they end up in Green Bay, off of, when they're released at cut downs, or you pluck them off of practice squads, or you sign them to your own practice squad, any of those kinds of things. Like they definitely have a process. So
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I think, again, visits matter. I would keep an eye on those. And that's why we're trying to get scouting reports as fast as I can write them up on all these guys who are coming in.
Go check them out over on acmepackingcompany.com. They're always very, very, very well worth your time. Justis does an amazing job on it. What else you got cooking at Acme Packing Company, Justis?
Oh man, I feel like a broken record keeping telling you guys the same thing, but like we got the mock drafts going Monday through Wednesdays. If you guys want to pop into the comment section to help us out, figuring out who the heck the Packers are going to draft. I think this might be the first time, Andy, in mock draft 4.0 that it's not going to be Derek Harmon.
Whew, spicy.
So, yeah. Last week, it was Derek Harmon, Jaden Higgins in the second, and then Charles Grant, the offensive lineman out of William and Mary, who I've barely seen in the third round. People really seem to like Charles Grant for whatever reason. I'd be really happy if Jaden Higgins is there in the second. And after the conversations I've had with some people in the league over the past week, I think he's going to be there, which is a little surprising to me. I thought Higgins probably would be like a high second type of guy, but it seems like he might go mid to late second and might even go behind his own teammate, Noel.
I've watched just a small snippet of Higgins, and I liked what I saw. I'm excited to dig into him a little bit more, which should be in the very, very near future. But like I said, in the meantime, make sure you're checking out all of the Justis's scouting reports over at acmepackingcompany.com. You can find him on social media at JUMOSQ. You can find me at Andy Herman NFL, and of course the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. That's going to do it for Justis and I today. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.